Kalispera, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining our Weather Optimized webinar today. The key topic of focus today is to show ways how ship owners and ship operators like you can innovate through weather to reduce your carbon footprint while saving costs and increasing profitability. First of all, let me introduce our speakers today. Many of you may already know me, Mags Maroney. I am the DTN Region Manager for Greece and Cyprus, based here in Athens, and I will be your host today. We have three presenters, Mr. Matthew Corey, DTN Product Manager, Shipping Routing, Mr. Jarko van der Brink, DTN Product Manager, Shipping Performance, and Mr. Gijs Hermans, DTN Solutions Engineer, Shipping. So just first of all, some housekeeping. The webinar is being recorded and will be sent to you afterwards. Due to COVID-19, all presenters are scattered and working off home desktops, so hopefully we won't have any technical issues. The presentation will take about 40 minutes and there will be a Q&A at the end. Please send your questions via the Q&A feature here through the WebEx and not the chat. So the Q&A feature, not the chat, please. If you experience any technical difficulties, please also let us know through the Q&A feature. So just a brief introduction to DTN. Many of you may be more familiar with us as MeteoBase. Late last year, we merged with US-based weather insights company DTN and rebranded under one organization with one mission and one corporate brand, DTN. DTN offers solutions under four main sectors, one being weather, and within that is the area of transportation, which our shipping division falls under. Under this new partnership, we will continue to bring additional value to our clients via best-in-class weather data and premium weather decision support solutions with a key focus on the shipping industry. So without further ado, I will hand you over into the capable hands of Matthew Corey, who will take you through what is optimized weather routing specifically and what are the key factors for its success.
There we go. Thanks, Mags, and hello, everyone. My name is Matt Corey. I am a Senior Product Manager here at DTN for Shipping, and my part of the presentation today is to define what is weather-optimized routing and present the key ingredients that goes into building our routing services that drives all of our shipping products here at DTN. To start, let's look at the evolution of routing and the incorporation of weather into the routing process. Vessel routing is simply getting a vessel from point A to point B, which historically used traditional routes. These are fixed, static routes and didn't look at weather at all. The downside of this traditional approach is that delays and unforeseen costs were encountered from having to reroute vessels around heavy weather events. Then came the introduction of weather routing. Weather routing is focused on safety, specifically to avoid dangerous weather. Obviously, and staying out of harm's way is a major selling point, but also the sooner you know about a weather hazard, the better your savings by avoiding having to reroute your vessel. In 1983, IMO Resolution A52813 advised that the practice of weather routing proved benefit to all ship operations. The IMO recommended all governments to advise vessels of the availability of weather routing. And the latest evolution of weather routing is what we call weather-optimized routing, which has all the safety benefits of weather routing, plus uses weather to advise routes based on predicted vessel performance. Over the last 10 years, weather-optimized routing has pushed weather routing to a new level of value to the industry. This routing type focuses on avoiding inaccurate ETAs due to miscalculations of weather impacts on vessel speeds. It compensates for the impacts of weather on vessel efficiency, impacts such as currents, wind and waves, swells, and more. And the angle of impact versus the vessel's heading is also important. I think of it as minimizing the into-your-face effects of the weather on your vessel. So what is weather-optimized routing? My definition is point-to-point safe route planning that include speed and heading recommendations taken into account impacts from environmental forces on a vessel's performance. The ingredients, which we will go into each of them here, is weather data, vessel profiles, weather optimized route network, a routing algorithm, and master mariners. The first ingredient is weather data. I'm sure you have heard from various sources that high resolution is better. But what is weather data resolution and why is it important? In this very simple example, we see a grid over Great Britain. Pay particular attention to the English Channel. The color of each box designates if the box is land or water. Greater than 50% land, then it's a greenish color. Greater than 50% water, it's a bluish color. High resolution is almost twice the number of boxes as the low resolution, and you can see the high resolution on the right and the low resolution on the left. Take away the land from underneath, and noticed that what's left really doesn't resemble the British Isles anymore. However, the higher resolution on the right, you can at least see where the channel is, and you can imagine that if the cells were divided again, you would see even more features. This is the gist of model resolution. Higher the resolution, the better the model can resolve geographic and weather features. When using low resolution, if the model can't even see the channel, how is it going to accurately predict the weather inside of it? What impact will this have on a real forecast? This slide shows a prediction of currents at the same moment in time using both a high and low resolution model for the same area. Again, notice the English Channel. The low resolution on the left has a limited area of maximum current. The high resolution on the right, with a better resolved channel, shows the stronger currents throughout the entire channel. The result of this could perhaps have an impact of a different decision to depart earlier or later in the voyage plan, or the route chosen through the channel might be altered, but for sure, the calculation of speed and performance of any vessel through this area will be affected by this difference in currents simply by using a higher resolution forecast model. What does DTN use for our weather data? We use the Nautical MeteoBase, or the NMB. Resolution, as we showed previously, is very important, but it's not the end-all solution for forecast accuracy. As a 20-year veteran forecaster and chief marine meteorologist, I always asked my teams how they knew their forecasts were right. Our most powerful tool is a verification. At DTN, we use global in situ observations, buoys, and nearshore sensors, as well as satellite observations, which are constantly sweeping the planet with increasing coverage and more timely data. We currently use 5 wind models, 3 wave models, and oceanic and tidal currents. What we do is we compare the models to the observations to produce a ranking and weighting of the most accurate models for every area of the Earth. In essence, I call it fit-for-purpose data. And then we do model mixing. Sometimes a model will be wrong, but it might be more right at a nearby grid cell, which would be a geographic bias, or sometimes a model will be wrong, but it might get it more right in a few hours, or maybe it got it right a few hours earlier. That's temporal or time bias. The NMB mixes and weighs the models while incorporating these biases. It's constantly improving to produce the most accurate solution available. New initiatives are underway to take the NMB philosophy to a whole new level, so stay tuned. So how do we know we're right? Well, here's a graph showing the accuracy of our newest NMB versus some of the common model members that consist of it. This is using global data over a whole year, and it focuses on wave heights. Measuring the model error in this graph, the higher accuracy is the lower you are on the graph. So the lower you are, the better you are. Time goes from left to right, so on the left side is 0 hours, we're right now, and all the way out to 144 hours. And you can see that the NMB, the red line, is constantly the most accurate model through the entire time period. The next ingredient for weather-optimized routing is the ship profiles. A ship model depends on many items, including hull design, propeller, engines, and more. What's really important to us is how the vessel model responds to the environment, and the profile includes waves, swells, winds, and more, and the angle of the impact versus the vessel heading is quite important for the resistance calculations. At DTN, we have a strong partnership with the Marine Institute. Marine has provided us with a library of precision profiles that we use for our route calculations, and these are selectable through our entire product suite. We also enable some customization with vessel draft, beam, and LPP, and we also allow customizable speed fuel curves. The next ingredient is the weather-optimized route network. In this very simplified view of a route, the inshore waters, the TSS, the safety corridors, bathymetry, and other restrictions, it gives very little room for optimization, while the open waters gives freedom and flexibility to avoid bad weather. And finally, we're back into the inshore waters again towards the end of the voyage. The goal of the weather-optimized route network: maximize the area that a vessel can travel in open waters to enable navigational freedom in both speed and heading to minimize the effect of environmental forces on a vessel's performance. What does this really mean? This is safety is the most important thing. If we know that a vessel can safely travel in a given area, the route network maximizes those areas to enable avoiding that weather-in-your-face effect, which results in the negative influences on performance from the weather. Now, route networks in the marketplace. How do other services deal with routing? A very common method is the best practice routes, which are preset, never changing. It's because we've always done it type of route. And the benefits of this is that they're safe, and they're knowledgeable, and they're known in the industry. The issues, though, are that you can't really optimize if you're always on the same track. Another method is AIS routes, which are becoming much more common, which looks at the trends in the AIS traffic. Where everyone else is going, it must be good for me too. The benefits of that is that it's updated constantly with the latest routes being used, but the issues are, how do you know the routes are safe? What vessels are using them? Are they optimized? And what we use is the weather-optimized route network, and it also uses AIS trends to identify changes in route behavior, but we check it. We update it regularly and checked with the latest ENCs by master mariners to make sure the legs are safe. It maximizes open areas for the ability to route vessels for performance optimization, and it's a step towards automated vessel intelligence. Our routing solutions will have less dangers, which helps for a faster and more accurate voyage planning process. Our route network is constantly being updated and its accuracy improved. And finally, our route network avoids what I call the lemming effect. That is, just because everyone else is doing it, and they might be costing them a lot of money, why should you? The next ingredient for weather-optimized routing is the routing algorithm itself. The routing algorithm is the glue that holds all the ingredients together. It must be fast and efficient to return a solution in a timely manner. Now, stepping through the routing process is the weather ingest. Always use the latest weather data. As a meteorologist, I'm going to say that again. Always use the latest weather data and use the highest resolution if it's available. Safety settings. You can set the limits on 30 plus parameters that you can alter. Parameters can be direct parameters such as wind, waves, distance to cyclones, visibility, or derived parameters such as motion, roll, pitch, and more. And you can select warning versus avoid. In a warning setting, a route returned could route you through dangers, but it will warn you when and where your limits are exceeded. Avoid completely avoids the conditions and limits that you have set. Next are restrictions, ice, vertex, or you can do customized areas to avoid. And also you set custom waypoints, which instead of avoid, these are places where you want to go. So the waypoints will be inserted as part of the route. Vessel characteristics, vessel model and profile, laden versus ballast voyage, adjust the fuel speed curve, even some trim settings. And we have several routing types available. Fixed speed routing, where you set a single speed as is designated in a charter party. Flexible variable speed, you can do a range of speeds in the routing calculation. Fixed ETA is a speed range allowing variable speed to avoid weather while still getting to the destination at a set time. All of these types are useful for multiple needs, including traditional charter party agreements and slow steaming. And you can optimize by speed, fuel, and cost. And here's an example. This is a screenshot of SPOS using Seakeeping. And if you see, the light gray line here was the fixed speed with standard thresholds of wave tolerance. The dark gray line was using Seakeeping set to avoid moderate motions through the voyage. In this case, the weather over this route was already marginal, but with the impact on the vessel via the motion predictions, the recommended route was altered to stay within the voyage and vessel and cargo limits. By using Seakeeping, it made a better decision based on the impact of the weather on the vessel versus the weather itself. This illustrates the flexibility and power of DTN's weather-optimized routing system. Here are a few examples of the routing algorithm and a couple of options. The first example, this is weather routing. It's not optimized. This is for a Tokyo to Seattle voyage of a handy-sized bulk carrier. And in the first table, the voyage settings are set to find the shortest time, but with weather limits set to none. The system routed the vessel through an area of dangerous weather past the Aleutians, and it marked it in red, alerting us that it did so. Now, if you made this voyage, a potential rerouting cost for this stretch could be around $24,000, and that doesn't include costs for delays, such as logistics and late penalties. And the second table, the settings are exactly the same with the same weather and vessel, except the weather limits were set to avoid, and this is a safe route that was returned. Note that the fuel, costs, and CO2 are all higher in this example, but you have avoided the rerouting costs. Now on this slide, it's the same setup, same vessel, same weather, same everything, except we're doing weather-optimized routing. All voyages on this slide are safe routes. Now the first table, which is down at the bottom, table 1, is a fixed speed, but optimized for costs. Notice it's a straight voyage and that it has minimized the ECA zone time to save costs and avoid the heavy weather. Now the second table, number 2, this is using a variable speed with a similar target ETA and also optimized on cost. In this routing, the system is allowed to vary the speed. The result had a considerable cost, fuel, and CO2 savings. And the third table, this also is a variable speed with the same target ETA, but this is optimized on fuel usage. Notice that it recommended a route through the Aleutians. Wasn't that the dangerous weather area in the previous example? Why is it sending us there if it's the same weather? Well, it slowed up the vessel to avoid the heavy weather, then went through the passage to gain the distance benefit. Notice that with this method returned, the lowest fuel used and the lowest CO2 output, but it did not result in the lowest cost because the vessel stayed a bit longer in the ECA zone. The point of this is that the DTN solution offers flexible route options to help make the most economical decision for each voyage. Now, the last but certainly not the least ingredient are our master mariners. Why master mariners? In routine and in weather, managing uncertainty and risk is really what we are doing. Each client, cargo, vessel, all have different tolerances, and one size doesn't fit all. Our mariners help with an experienced opinion for making the right decision and lowering your risk. We have strength and experience helping clients optimize their routes. Here's a use case in a 2019 super typhoon in Japan, where a 50,000-ton tanker found themselves needing to get to port through some dangerous swells that were outpacing the storm. our mariners successfully advised and kept the master up to date and safely got the tanker to port. Our consulting routing product is known as RouteGuard, and we have initials, which are pre-voyage advice, regular updates during the voyage, and on-demand updates when you need it. We also like our masters for other reasons as well, primarily for product development. We already talked about it takes a mariner to create a product for mariners, and the route network updates are constantly being done and being checked by our master mariners. We also use our mariners for post-voyage analysis and claim supports. And new at DTN, out of the DTN shipping labs, our master mariners are hard at work helping for a new innovation. This is a client use case that came to us and showed that they were losing from $350 to $3,000 a day if the vessel was 1 to 3 knots off from the vessel's optimal performance speed. Our solution is what we're calling optimal speed routing, and it requires a flexible ETA. The routing device is for the entire voyage, but is weighted towards the short-term forecast values. It maximizes the cost savings in the short range. The advice includes frequently updated speed and heading recommendations that, when followed, are showing considerable cost savings. The concept is little gains add up, and they are. So far, the results have been quite promising to meet some very rigid cost-saving KPIs. So those are the ingredients for creating weather-optimized routing. And the summary, for this section anyway, is weather-optimized routing represents the latest in evolution of route advice by combining the cost-saving benefits of weather safety routing and vessel performance. It's a powerful solution that can save between 5 to 10% per voyage, and Jarkko is going to show a couple of examples. It's a great way to manage not just your costs, but also greenhouse gas emissions for 2030 and beyond. And DTN, we offer the best-in-world routing options with innovative and flexible delivery, and Heis will show some examples of that. I look forward to your questions at the end of the presentations. And next up is Jarkko.
Thank you, Matt, and good day all listening to this webinar. I'm Jarkko van der Brink, working at DTN now for 14 years, and I'm the product manager for the performance side of shipping within DTN. Well, let's discuss the benefits of weather-optimized routing, so basically the what's in it for me question, and discuss some real-life examples. The benefits of weather-optimized routing can be separated in 4 main categories. Some general cost savings and improved operational efficiencies, reduced environmental impact on our planet, which is in this context often the result of an improved operational efficiency, increased voyage safety, and the improved vessel performance. Well, let's have a closer look into these categories. The general cost savings and improved operational efficiency can be further broken down and largely consists out of the reduction of fuel consumption. Like Matthew showed, the weather-optimized routing will avoid the impact of bad weather and save on fuel and time. In turn, this will also reduce the daily operational cost of a vessel. And the last big contributor will be having a more reliable ETA and saving costs associated with port logistics and trading. All these items will add up to savings in a range of $350,000 to $450,000 per day, as highlighted in blue. And bear with me because I will show some real-life examples later on. Then we have the weather-optimized, reducing of the environmental impact. Weather-optimized routing will also reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Avoiding bad weather or arriving earlier can help in reaching your sustainability goals. The advanced routing options that Matthew explained also allow for variable speed routing. This is an enhanced alternative for slow steaming and can save additional costs and emissions. Well, voyage safety is paramount, I would say. So it's key to keep your crew, cargo, and company assets safe. And again, weather-optimized routing will avoid heavy weather conditions that can damage your cargo or vessel. Also, the extra module of SPOS called seakeeping can protect your vessel for exceeding your synchronic roll limits. And maybe not everyone knows what it is, but it's basically when a vessel starts to resonate on the water, on the waves, which can lead to heavy rolling of the vessel. Furthermore, we can also achieve better vessel performance through weather-optimized routing. Not only because weather-optimized routing takes advantage of favorable currents and winds, but also with the SPOS module called Trim Advisor. With the Trim Advisor, the best trim can be determined within certain weather conditions. Also, this can add up to savings up to $1,000 a day. And let me discuss some live examples that I've encountered during the last month. So this first example shows how weather-optimized routing can save on the operational costs. What you see here is an internal KPI report that we are keeping track of our added value within DTN. Well, this vessel is an oil tanker, as you can see, and it sailed from Venezuela towards India. Well, the black route on the map is the traditional route and the waypoint for such a voyage. The red route is the actual route sailed based on the weather-optimized routing. And within this KPI report, we are tracking the conditions of both routes to determine the fuel and time savings. Well, for this voyage, it took 34 days. The vessel arrived more than 1.5 days earlier, as you can see by the red arrows, and it saves close to 240 metric tons of fuel. And within the post-it, you can see an easy calculation that can be done to determine the daily savings. And for this particular voyage and vessel type, it was close to $2,000 a day. Well, within the same KPI report, we are also keeping track of the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Again, for this particular vessel and voyage, it added up to a carbon dioxide saving comparable to an 8-hour flight of a Boeing 747 aircraft. So that's quite substantial. Well, I already mentioned that safety is paramount. In this example, you can see that the SPOS seakeeping module in action. This is a case from January 2019, where some heavy northerly swells were sweeping across the southern parts of the North Sea. Well, the vessel was sailing from the English Channel towards the German Bight and was caught in heavy synchronic roll. And especially when it had to bend starboard, it came into the synchronic roll conditions. And as you can see within the seakeeping diagram, the pink color indicates the angle or the heading where the risk of the synchronic roll conditions for the vessel are. Also, a warning is being displayed when calculating the weather-optimized route, assisting you in identifying the hazardous conditions. Well, and this is the result. It was a quite costly result, of course. So also safety is paramount. Last case in the examples where the vessel performance is improved by using the SPOS Trim Advisory module. This Trim Advisory is taking the optimum hull and the propeller efficiency into account and makes it possible to calculate at what wave height the trim needs to be amended. This is different than, for example, CFD models or tank tow tests that are doing it a little bit different. You can see on the bottom a table with position updates. The first red marked box is the engine output and the speed through water before the trim adjustments were being done. And the second marked box shows the values after the trim adjustments were done. You can clearly see that the engine output is reduced while the vessel maintains its speed. Well, this of course leads to fuel savings, but also some other savings like cylindric oil usage. There is less wear and tear on the equipment, and you can avoid speed claims when optimum trim is applied in good weather days. Well, to summarize it all, with weather-optimized routing, you can save significant costs and have an improved operational efficiency, improved vessel performance, while also reducing your environmental footprint. And on top of that, keep your cargo, crew, and assets safe. Within the post-its, you can see the summary of the cases that I just discussed. These are all telling some real-life savings that are being achieved. If you want to calculate the saving potentials for your fleet, keep in mind that there is no one-size-fits-all approach on this. However, I do think that the examples irrefutable point out that there are tremendous savings potentials possible in the different areas. And well, combining all the numbers, weather-optimized routing can add up to an astonishing $2 million of saving potentials per vessel per annum. Well, next in line, my colleague Gijs will demo what is needed to embed weather-optimized routing into your operations.
Thank you, Jacob. Hello, everyone. My name is Gijs Harmens, and I am the solution engineer for our marine products within DTN. I will demonstrate you today our SPOS onboard routing optimization application, and afterwards I will demonstrate a few slides on our web office management tool, Fleetcar Enterprise. For time optimization and to avoid any potential technology issues, I have pre-recorded the video where I demonstrate SPOS onboard, and I will show that now. Hello. In this video, I will demonstrate how our routing algorithm works in practice. I will use our SPOS onboard tool for this. As described in previous slides, there are a few requirements before we can actually start calculating the route. First of all, a template is required. The departure and the destination port are sufficient because our routing network will take care of making sure that the route is guided through traffic separation schemes and that non-saleable areas are avoided. In this example, I've put in Rotterdam as the departure port and Houston as the destination port. Then the profile of the vessel needs to be defined. Two things are important here. First of all, we need to know what the vessel dimensions and vessel hull type is. This is required for the algorithm to determine how much the weather and the currents will actually affect the vessel while she's en route. Secondly, when a voyage is optimized on fuel or on costs, we need to know how much fuel is consumed at the specific cold water speed. This can be defined in this table. If required, the trim can be inserted as well. This is used by the algorithm to advise you the optimum trim when the route calculation is done. I will demonstrate that in the final part of this video. Then you can define some weather limits. There are two ways of defining weather limits in the algorithm. One option is to receive a warning when a weather limit is exceeded. The algorithm will calculate the most optimum route, but it gives you a warning and a dotted line on the route itself where the weather limit is exceeded. You can also set the algorithm to avoid a certain threshold. For this, you need to select the avoid tick box. Weather limit itself can be adjusted. Finally, you can set up your own customized restrictions. Think of whale areas where there is a limited speed, or piracy areas which you want to avoid. Let's go to the routing tab. There are multiple ways to optimize the voyage. I will optimize my voyage first at 14 knot speed in the time optimization. This will calculate the most optimum arrival time with a fixed speed of 14 knots. For comparison purposes, I will ask the system to calculate the shortest route, which is Great Circle route as well, to compare. Secondly, I will optimize my voyage on costs and add this to the comparison. Finally, I will use the most sophisticated calculation of the algorithm. I will do a fixed ETA calculation with a speed range from 12 to 60 knots. This way, the algorithm is capable of speeding up or slowing the vessel down if the weather permits. For this, I have set an ETA, which is in line with the estimated ETAs for both the time and cost optimization. I set the range to 12 to 16 knots, and I will optimize on costs as well. Now we have all four options in the comparison table below. From here, you can finally choose the route you're actually going to sail. Let's first compare the costs. If I look at the different options, you can see that there's almost 10K difference between the most optimum route calculation, the last calculation I did, and the shortest route. So it's actually very easy to just save 10K off your voyage by optimizing. If you have decided which route you're going to sail, you can select the route and click the Trim Advice button. The system will then give you the expected fuel saving with the optimum trim calculated by the algorithm. As you can see, the algorithm proposes you an aft and a forward trim. Using this optimum trim, there can be a significant fuel saving as well. If I apply this, the system gives me a fifth option, which shows the final voyage cost. As you can see, there's even $1,000 more savings by just applying the optimum trim. If this is your route you're going to sail, and it's selected, you can start the actual voyage. We have integrated a noon reporting tool in the system, which allows you to go through a voyage update wizard. While updating the voyage, you can gather some information, which is normally gathered in noon reporting tools. I can update my start of sea passage. I can put in my voyage name, my start of sea passage time, my start of sea passage position, and the next step brings me to the position update report. I've already pre-populated a few values which will not change during the route. My speed combination, my departure destinations, my observed distance, which is in this case nothing because I'm just started, and some consumptions. I can put in my consumed fuels, or I can leave it with the ROVs. When finished, the system will automatically pop up an email, which is automatically sent to our cloud database. If this is sent, the system will update the database, and the position, the upcoming voyage, and the weather information can be observed through our web-based tool. Now you can see that the voyage is en route in the system. Now you can repeat the sequence the next day. It starts over again. The first upcoming noon, you can update the position with the new weather forecast and the new current noon position. The system allows you to recalculate the voyage if necessary, if there are significant changes in the weather, for example, and you can update your voyage from there. The process repeats. It opens an email again. The email is sent to our cloud database, and it can be read from the web-based tool.
So, to summarize the benefits of our onboard route optimization application, we have integrated an extended route network functionality, which allows you to do port-to-port navigation. It has a variable speed calculation, which fully optimizes your voyage. We have the ability to include trim optimization for additional voyage savings, and we have an integrated noon reporting tool. The integrated noon reporting tool, as shown in the video, brings the information of the vessel and the current voyage to our web office management tool called FleetGuide Enterprise. In FleetGuide Enterprise, it will look like this. As soon as a vessel has started the voyage and sent the noon update to the cloud database, the voyage will be shown in the web portal like this. You can see that the upcoming route from the chosen route from SPOS is displayed on the chart, and the backtrack of the voyage is also displayed on the chart. Apart from the noon position updates we receive, we add AIS data and satellite AIS data to the backtrack of the vessel to make sure that this is as accurate as possible. It also shows instantly some performance information on the current voyage, and it is automatically, upon receiving each noon report, benchmarking the actual performance or the actual reported fuel consumption of the vessel against some pre-set up thresholds. This could be pre-set up benchmark thresholds, but this could also be charter party conditions agreed for the specific voyage. When having the route in SPOS available, it also allows you, from the office tool, to compare the route with the most optimum route. In other words, the algorithm which calculates the most optimum route for your route is available in the web tool as well. This allows you to benchmark the route received from the master against the most optimum route available. In this example I showed here, you can see that the received route has, apart from the departure and destination waypoints, also includes two specific waypoints integrated in the route on the ocean. One is put here and the other one is put there. While receiving this route in the web application, it allows you to compare this and run a route optimization for the remaining part of the voyage from the vessel's current position. In the overview here, you can then see the difference between the route received from SPOS and the most optimum route available. By comparing this, you can see that although the route received from SPOS is shorter, it's still 6 hours longer, and you can save another 3.91 metric tons of fuel on the specific voyage. Finally, in general, on the web office management tool, when all new data is received from your voyages, current and previous ones, it all stored in our database. Having all that information in our database, it allows you to analyze that data. It's a very flexible system which allows you to set up all kinds of graphs and overviews to measure KPIs and performance of your vessels. While the data is received in our database, we have a team in our weather room which is sanity checking the data as well. So the data comes in, sanity checked, cleansed, and is presented back to you through our web portal. Finally, on the received data, the system allows you to set up customized alerts on weather or voyage events. These alerts can be set up for a specific group of vessels, for individual vessels, but even for a specific voyage, in case there is any specific cargo, for example. These alerts will be available throughout the web portal, as you can see in this example, in this specific alert widget, but they will also show up on the charts in any specific overview you pre-set up, or even in your individual email box if you want the system to notify you per email. That's it for the live demonstrations. I will now hand over to my colleague Max again.
Thank you, Kais. And thank you all, Kais, Jarko, and Matt, for your interesting and detailed presentations. I hope, or I trust, that you will all agree that by adopting optimized weather routing into your operations, you can experience all these benefits like cost savings, improved operational efficiency, reduced environmental impact, increased voyage safety, and improved vessel performance. Finally, just a quick overview of the DTN solutions that we touched on today and that will allow you to adopt optimized weather routing into your operations. SPOS, DTN's onboard weather routing solution with Kais demoed. Trim Advisor, which is DTN's optimum trim weather routing tool, which takes optimized weather, maximum wave, and propeller efficiency into account. It can be fully integrated into SPOS or delivered as an advice on a per voyage basis. We have SPOS Seakeeping, which we also highlighted today. It's DTN's ship motions module. This is fully integrated into SPOS and allows for optimized route calculations according to the latest weather forecast, the ship's specific characteristics, and provided motion limits. Route Guard Service offers shore-based weather routing and performance monitoring, which is prepared and checked daily by our in-house master mariners, route analysts, and marine meteorologists. Fleet Guard, which Kais also just finished demoing, is DTN's office solution for both vessel tracking, performance monitoring, and weather routing. Last but not least, DTN offers a suite of APIs, or APIs, as some of you may refer to it, which allows you to ingest weather data into your own in-house or onboard tools. To name a few would be our Marine Forecast API, our Hindcast API, Weather Layers API, and soon to be launched Routing API. So thank you for your attention. It is finally time for some questions. So thank you all for sharing your questions. And the first One is, you mentioned 5 weather models, and what are they? And another similar one, which I might throw to you, Matt, is how reliable are the weather data presented for 180 hours from specifically the NOAA models? So that is, what are the 5 models we are using, and how reliable are weather data presented for 180 hours for the NOAA models? So
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Good question. Good question. I don't have in front of me the exact models that we're using, but we are using several regional models as well as global models. And you specifically asked about the NOAA model. That is one of the models in our member is the GFS from NOAA. And the smarts behind the NMB is that we are looking at all those models and weighing them against each other versus verifications. So do we use the NOAA model? Yes, we do. And if it proves itself, then it will be used for a certain region or a certain area. So we take the best of every model, and that's what we put forward. 180 hours out is a long time. So I used to tell my forecasting team that anything over 3 or 4 days, you might as well get a dartboard out, right? Now the models are constantly improving in the extended range, and so it's getting better and better with time. And one of the best rules of thumb, and that's what I said earlier, is always use the latest model data, right? Because the model that far out is going to constantly be changing. So you've got to always refresh and make sure you have the latest for any of the decisions that you're making.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Another question, we're having a lot of questions coming in from TRIM. So one question was, do we see any savings from TRIM in tankers and bulkers? Well, I hope that during the presentation we definitely proved that. One of the savings examples that Jarko shared was from a tanker vessel, from a bulker vessel. And the example that Gijs used in his demonstration was a tanker vessel. So definitely we are seeing some savings in both tankers and bulkers for the TRIM. Another question was what about the optimum routing algorithm in TRIM as well, and what are the major principles? So basically, we have to design a vessel model specific for your vessel. So we do a specific TRIM model first, which will take in the main vessel dimensions, propeller information, sailing conditions, and data from hydrostatic tables. So with all that information, we design a specific customized model for your vessel, and then we use that for the algorithm, and then we apply all the other elements of our weather optimized routing solution, which Matt shared earlier on. Another question coming in is archive data in SPOS. Can we access archive data in SPOS? Maybe Matt, you want to take that?
Sure, yeah, and SPOS is constantly collecting the data, but it's also compressing it and storing it locally. So, like I said, you always use the most latest data, but within the SPOS, there's a drop-down that you can go to and pull in any of the archives that you pulled in, which is great for looking at previous voyages and previous calculations that were done.
Thank you, Matt. Another question is, how long does routing typically take? Anyone wants to answer that? Not sure, Matt, under the routing, if you'd like to take that one too.
Sure, I'll take that one. I mean, I guess I'm assuming that it's about how long does the routing algorithm take to come back. That was one of the key assets of our routing algorithm, is it has to be efficient, it has to work quickly. But some of the basic routing algorithms that we have are doing, a single speed versus 2 points. That's pretty fast. It will come back in a couple of seconds. The more complicated ones, where you have variable speed algorithms involved, it can bog it down a little bit, but usually I would be around, I would say at the most 20 to 30 seconds. Gijs, do you have a comment on that?
No, you're right. It depends a little bit on what type of calculation you do. I took the calculation time out of the video to optimize it on time. Typically within a few seconds you'll get a simple calculation, and it can take up to a minute for a very sophisticated calculation. The reason for that is that the algorithm, while you're firing an optimization calculation to the algorithm with a variable speed, with a fixed ETA, underneath there are thousands of calculations done to try all possible options to find the most optimum route.
I'll follow up with a separate comment on that. Is that the algorithm or the SPOS particularly is meant to be an interactive as well. So it's important to us that it goes fairly quickly, so that, as you can see, you have a bunch of different options and things that you can do. So if it goes fast, then you can do it again if you want to adjust something. So it's quite important to us to have it in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Matt and Gijs. We have another question here about the resolution of our data. What is the highest resolution data we have? Who would like to answer that? Matt, I'm guessing? Or...
That's a good question. We, like I said, we're constantly improving and constantly getting higher resolution into our system. But also keep in mind that one of the items that we have to deal with is getting that data to the vessel. So often we need to be able to break it down into ingestible chunks to have it. So we do have a half-degree data, and we're increasing the resolution all the time. So it's coming more and more high resolution all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly where Matt's referred to the shipping labs, right? We're constantly innovating in that area.
Thank you, Jarko and Matt. Another question here about, did you mean parametric role for synchronic, and this is a problem only for containers? So does anyone want to take that, just to clarify in that comment that we made?
Yeah, so this particular case was all about indeed rolling conditions, where they lost a few containers at the southern North Sea. That was the case that we identified, where actually SPOS and predominantly the seakeeping module was identifying that there was a risk in that certain heading and direction for the rolling conditions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jarko. Long question now. How do we benchmark the performance of our data in FleetGuard? So, as in, how do we benchmark the performance data in terms of speed and consumption in FleetGuard?
I can take that one.
Yeah.
So in our FleetGuard web portal, you are able, and it depends a little bit on the level of service you take. Basically, the monitoring service, or the ability to monitor your fleet, comes in two flavors. One is an option where you can manage everything yourself, and the second one is an option, as I mentioned briefly, where we have a team in our weather room who is constantly sanity checking the data for you. The system has the ability to pre-set up benchmark evaluations, which could be a charter party condition. It's an allowed consumption, including or not including potential about the agreed speed, including about criteria like taking currents out, or those kind of agreements which are commonly in a charter party discussion. This can all be pre-set up for all the possible charter party conditions can be set up on a specific vessel level, and it can be applied to the specific voyage then. The specific benchmark or charter party, if you want to call it, for that specific voyage will be applied. That is also updated from the noon reporting tool. In other words, if the master reports his instructed speed, the system will automatically apply the correct charter party, which applies for that specific speed and loading condition, of course. When then the consumed fuel is reported, it's automatically benchmarked and the performance is calculated. Also, because we have the backtrack of the vessel and we have our analysis hindcast weather of the backtrack of the vessel, we know which part of the voyage was good weather. So our system will then automatically look at how the vessel performed in that specific good weather, and will calculate the good weather performance of the vessel for that specific day up till that very moment. So this functionality allows you to monitor your vessels on her current voyage, and you can already see whether a vessel is underperforming or performing well.
Thank you, Kai, for your detailed answer. Another question is, do DTN use machine learning principles in our model algorithms? Anyone like to take that?
Depends on model, right? So if it's weather models, then I would say yes, right? We are constantly using observations and measurements in our weather models in order to improve it, right? Like Matt, and I think maybe Matt can comment that as well. Also, spatially, right, for the different areas in the world. So if it's about weather models, then definitely yes.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, but if not, we will obviously get back to you with some more information if it didn't answer your question. Another question is, when you benchmark your optimum route against the basic route of the shortest distance, do you simulate the basic route by taking into account the theoretical weather conditions and produce an assumed total consumption for the trip? I think you semi-answered that, maybe, Kai, but does anyone want to take it?
Maybe I did. It does take the actual weather forecast into account. Now, as our forecast lasts for 9 days, and a typical voyage on average will be longer than that 9 days, it will indeed use some theoretical weather conditions, but only after the 9 days. That goes for the basic initial route calculation, but also for the route optimization. So it will be a fair comparison to that extent.
Okay, great. Another question is, what are the main differences of DTN versus other weather routing providers? I would hope Matt demonstrated that in his part of the presentation, because the key aspects for success is something unique to DTN, but maybe Matt, you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. Yeah, I could just talk about the benefits that we have on the various components of our routing. The Master Mariners is one, because, as I said, it takes a mariner to build an application for a mariner. But our route network is fantastic, because it enables us to route in areas that other services can't route and optimize in. And of course, our weather data. Our weather data incorporates high resolution data as well as global data into it. But being able to verify and know that what you're using is the best for the area that you're going to is world leading. It's quite innovative.
Thank you, Matt. And unfortunately, we have reached, we're going to get kicked out of this session as it's 6 p.m., well, local time here. So without further ado, just to thank you all for your attention, and any questions that we didn't get to, we will of course follow up individually with you. There will be a copy of the recording, which will be sent to you all following this webinar also. And feel free to get in touch with me at the email address below, or any of my colleagues if you have any further questions following this webinar. So thank you all for your attention and your attendance, and I hope you learned something and enjoyed the information we shared, and we look forward to speaking with you again. Take care, bye-bye.